Picture yourself in one of the most stunning theaters in America, the red velvet curtains about to rise, the golden lights dimming as anticipation crackles through the air. Suddenly, instead of applause, a chorus of boos and jeers erupts, not for a performer, but for the President of the United States. This is no scene from a scripted political drama. This is real life at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, where the arrival of President Donald Trump for a performance of Les Miserables turned a night of culture into a lightning rod of protest, walkouts, and heated debate. What does this moment mean for the future of America's most iconic arts institution? And what does it reveal about the fragile intersection of art, politics, and national identity in the 21st century? For more than 5 decades, the Kennedy Center has represented the very heart of America's cultural life. Since its opening in the early 1970s, the center has welcomed ballet companies, jazz legends, opera stars, and experimental theater troupes alike. Its stages have brought together communities from every corner of the country, celebrating both classical traditions and bold new voices. Born from a vision of inclusion and creative freedom, the Kennedy Center has stood as a beacon for the arts, an institution meant to bridge divides and inspire hope. Yet today, that hopeful vision is under siege. The numbers tell a sobering story. Subscription revenues have plunged by more than 1/3 since Trump's arrival. Theater performance income has plummeted by more than 4/5, an astonishing 82% drop in the first 2 weeks after the leadership change. This is not just a dip, it is a free fall. Single ticket sales for the spring season have been cut nearly in half. The Kennedy Center now faces an annual operating deficit that exceeds $100 million, with a mountain of debt swelling to more than $40 million. The once proud endowment, which hovered around $200 million before these upheavals, is now at risk of depletion. In the wake of these changes, the center's storied halls have become battlegrounds. The backlash from artists and audiences has been swift and fierce. Major touring productions, including the Broadway sensation Hamilton, have canceled their runs. Prominent artists like actress Issa Rae and Grammy-winning musician Rhiannon Giddens have pulled their scheduled appearances, citing concerns over censorship and exclusion. Veteran artistic consultants, names like Ben Folds and Renee Fleming, who have shaped the center's reputation for excellence, have resigned in protest. Even the stage itself has not been spared from the turmoil. On the very night of Trump's Les Miserables visit, up to a dozen cast members reportedly refused to perform, standing in solidarity against what they see as an attack on creative freedom. Understudies took their place, but the message was loud and clear: the arts community will not be silenced. Drag performer Vagenesis, one of several who attended in protest, captured the sentiment. Theater should be a place of community, of joy, of catharsis. It should be open and available to all, regardless of who sits in the audience. But not everyone is dismayed. Voices from the conservative sphere, such as Matt Schlapp, chairman of the Conservative Political Action Conference, have expressed a newfound sense of welcome at the center. Trump himself seems unfazed by the outcry. "I could not care less," he told reporters. "All I do is run the country well." These remarks underscore a deepening divide in how Americans perceive the role of art in society, as either a neutral ground for all or as a stage for values and identity. For regular patrons like Amy, the conflict is deeply personal. "I feel frustrated," she confides, "but at the same time, I didn't want to abandon this institution." Her words echo a broader anxiety among supporters who cherish the Kennedy Center's legacy but worry about its future. Michael Kaiser, a respected expert in arts management, issues a dire warning. Political interference in arts institutions can have a chilling effect on creativity and philanthropy. When donors and artists fear reprisals or ideological vetting, the entire ecosystem of cultural support may begin to unravel. The Kennedy Center now stands at a crossroads, its grand architecture casting a shadow over a bitterly divided audience. Financially, the crisis is acute. With deficits rising above $100 million and an endowment in jeopardy, the center's survival as a premier destination for the performing arts is no longer assured. Some experts predict that if the current trajectory continues unchecked, the Kennedy Center could lose its standing as the nation's cultural flagship within just a few short seasons. Yet the story is not just about numbers. Behind the scenes, legal and labor battles are intensifying. More than 170 employees have initiated efforts to unionize, seeking protection for both their livelihoods and their creative independence. Lawsuits are anticipated in the coming year, challenging the legitimacy of trustee removals and the sudden abolition of social impact programs. initiatives that once fostered community engagement and outreach to underserved audiences. For many, these struggles represent a fight not just for the Kennedy Center, but for the very soul of American culture. The impact of these changes extends far beyond the walls of the Kennedy Center. Across the country, other arts institutions are watching closely, wary of similar political interventions. The precedent being set in Washington, D.C. may shape the future of cultural funding, programming, and artistic freedom nationwide. As Michael Kaiser has observed, the arts are always vulnerable to political winds, but never before have we seen such direct intervention at this scale in a national institution. Meanwhile, new voices are emerging in the debate. Some philanthropic organizations have stepped forward, pledging to fund independent artistic projects outside the official Kennedy Center structure. There is talk of developing a shadow season of performances, with canceled artists taking their work to satellite venues throughout the D.C. area. Such initiatives are reminiscent of underground movements in other eras, where artists found ways to reach audiences despite censorship or political repression. Technology, too, may offer a lifeline. As the Kennedy Center's broadcast deal with CBS nears expiration at the end of 2025, digital partnerships with streaming platforms are being explored. These platforms could provide new revenue streams and ensure that diverse artistic voices continue to reach national audiences, even if traditional channels are disrupted. Such innovation recalls earlier moments in American history when the arts adapted in the face of adversity, whether during the Great Depression, when the Federal Art Project provided work for thousands, or in the 1970s, when the Kennedy Center itself narrowly escaped closure thanks to a groundswell of grassroots support. But while some see opportunity in reinvention, others fear a permanent loss. The elimination of the Social Impact Program, which had a $5 million annual budget, is particularly troubling to advocates for equity in the arts. This initiative brought performances and workshops to schools, hospitals, and marginalized communities, a lifeline for those who have historically been excluded from mainstream cultural institutions. Now, with its disappearance, the risk is that the Kennedy Center will become less accessible, less relevant, and less reflective of America's diversity. For everyday Americans, the lessons of this cultural saga are profound. The crisis at the Kennedy Center demonstrates with painful clarity how politics can shape, distort, or even jeopardize the institutions that tell our collective stories. The arts are not merely entertainment. They are spaces where questions of identity, belonging, and justice are debated and defined. As Anderson Wells, known on stage as Vagenesis, puts it, "It was protest by taking up space. We wanted to support the artists and draw attention to the drag ban." For artists, the warning is clear. Creative freedom cannot be assumed, and solidarity may be more important than ever. For audiences, these events are a call to action. Where you spend your cultural dollars, which stories you support, and which institutions you champion are choices that shape the landscape of American arts. As Amy, the longtime attendee, reminds us, your choices and your voice matter more than ever. Looking ahead, the Kennedy Center faces several possible futures. If the current trends continue, if political polarization deepens, funding dries up, and artists continue to depart, the center may become a cautionary tale, remembered more for what it lost than for what it created. Yet, there is still hope. If legal challenges succeed in restoring independent oversight, if new funding models take root, and if the community rallies to demand a return to the center's founding ideals, it could emerge stronger and more inclusive than before. There are historical precedents for such a turnaround. In the 1970s, faced with bankruptcy and political neglect, the Kennedy Center was rescued not by government mandate, but by the determination of artists and audiences who refused to let it fail. Fundraisers, benefit concerts, and grassroots campaigns breathed new life into the institution. More recently, during times of national trauma, such as the aftermath of September 11th, the center has served as a gathering place for reflection and unity, underscoring its role as a cultural anchor in turbulent times. Today, the challenge is as great as ever. The Kennedy Center must find ways to reconcile its mission with the realities of a fractured nation. Some experts suggest that embracing a wider spectrum of programming, including both traditional and avant-garde works, voices from all political and cultural backgrounds, could help repair trust and rebuild its audience base. Others advocate for greater transparency in governance and renewed commitments to outreach and education. Meanwhile, competing visions for the center's future are emerging. Supporters of Trump's changes argue that the arts should reflect the values of all Americans, not just select groups, and that eliminating anti-American propaganda is necessary to restore balance. Critics counter that true artistry thrives on diversity, risk-taking, and dissent, and that narrowing the range of voices on stage impoverishes the national conversation. The stakes could not be higher. The Kennedy Center is more than a building. It is a symbol of America's cultural aspirations and contradictions. Its fate will be determined not just by boardroom decisions or political edicts, but by the collective action of artists, audiences, donors, and citizens nationwide. So, can the Kennedy Center recover and remain a beacon for American arts? Or will it fade into history, torn apart by the very divisions it was meant to transcend? The answer, like the most compelling dramas, is far from simple, and it depends, in part, on all of us. Recovery is possible, but only if communities, artists, and supporters come together to demand that the center honor its roots as a place for every American story. If legal challenges succeed and new partnerships flourish, the center could become more innovative and inclusive than ever. But if polarization continues unchecked, the risk is clear. The Kennedy Center could become a monument not to creativity, but to lost opportunity. Here's a little-known fact. In past decades, the Kennedy Center weathered other storms, funding crises, political protests, and even near closure in the 1970s. Each time it was saved not by politicians, but by the determination of artists and the passion of audiences who refused to let it fall. Now the spotlight is on us. Will we let division tear down a national treasure, or can we help rebuild it for the next generation? What role do you think the arts should play in society, and how can institutions like the Kennedy Center navigate the cross-currents of politics and culture? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you value independent coverage at the crossroads of culture, politics, and technology, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most important stories. The drama unfolding at the Kennedy Center is a stark reminder